In this lecture, we're going to talk about a very important and probably one of the most confusing points of InVideo. It's a very simple program to use, but it does have its complexities. One is layers, we covered that, and the other is the timeline. Now, the timeline defines how everything is orchestrated and all your animations come together. This is it right here, this aqua line that goes across. And when I'm on slide 1, okay, I've got that selected. Notice that it says this scene is 5 seconds long. The total duration of the entire video, because it has a second slide, is 9 seconds long. But the timeline says here, look at this, I'm selecting the image in the background, and it's supposed to be here the entire time of this first slide. So it begins at 0 seconds and it ends at 5.7 seconds. Now, if I wanted the video to show up just a little bit later, I would go like this. And let's say drag this up to 0.5 seconds. Now the video won't appear until 5 seconds into the program. Now this is the playhead, and I can use it to see what any of the scenes are going to look like just by dragging it along. And if I drag it before 0.5 seconds, I should see white. That's interesting. I'm not seeing white, possibly because I'm seeing part of a transition. Let's bring it out a little farther to a second. There we go. Now, if I take the playhead and I move it here, I still don't see white, but that's okay. So this scene starts at 0 seconds and it ends at 5 seconds, and the image in the background plays the entire time. Now, what's interesting is let's go ahead to the next slide. So I'll click on that. Now notice that this scene is 5 seconds long. The total duration is 9 seconds. That's interesting. It should be 10 seconds, shouldn't it? 2 5-second scenes. But what we've got selected, which is the text, doesn't start until 4.5 seconds. So it's 0.5 seconds in, and then it ends at 9. Now, this actually has the scenes overlapping somewhat. Now, this may be because of the transition, but what things should do is they should time out correctly. So I would start this text at maybe 5 seconds. Now, let's do a preview of the entire thing, and it should go. So unfortunately, we don't have a scene here. Let's get some media in the background. Here we go, just something with a coffee cup. And now we can see that this scene starts at 4 seconds. Now that doesn't make sense to me because this scene is 5 seconds. That's why the whole thing is coming out at 9 seconds. It's overlaying this scene by 1 second, and that may be the time of the transition. So if I come to this scene, I can see that it runs from 4 seconds to 9 seconds. If I click this text, we'll see that it now starts at 5 seconds in. We can bring it back to its original 4.5 seconds, but the whole scene starts at 4 seconds, which is interesting. That must be because of the transition. Now, on any of these, this is the playhead. So I can move this. Let's say our text now is coming in at 0.5 seconds. If I go back to before 0.5 seconds, I should not see the text. It's not, it keeps jumping back over. I want to stay with the text. And it jumps back over to the image. But anyway, what I can typically do is that I can move this and see what the image is going to look like with the playhead at that position. So what you're doing is sequencing together. Let's go to slide 1. So 0 to 5 seconds. Okay, we have that going on. And then here, suddenly at 4 seconds, so a slight overlap probably because of the transition, to 9 seconds. And let's see the text. The text actually comes in at 4.5 seconds, so it comes in half a second late. Now we can make that be even later, 5 seconds. We can actually shorten when it's going to go out. Now, the other thing that happens is that at these points, your animations occur. So here we have an in animation for this text of fade in, and that's going to happen at 5 seconds now. So 5 seconds for this. Okay, into this, then we have a transition, which is going to eat into it a little bit. And then we have, at 5 seconds, we have this text is going to fade in. And I really should, see, it keeps jumping back over to something that I've got. But I should be able to see what things look like without the text by moving the playhead. Looks like we've got some kind of a bug or something going on here. But it's going to disappear. Let's see, at point 8, is it going to leave me? No, it throws me back over to the entire slide. So this is the way you sequence things. And what I wanted to show you was a complex sequence. So let's go here, select the back, and delete it. Because I want this on white. Now I'm going to take this text and I'm going to move it up here. Notice one of the things we could do too here is we can select alignment. So I can make it left, centered, and right. We've had it centered most of the time. I'm going to make it right. And then I'm going to put in another piece of text, a headline. So it should be, okay, we want it the same size ultimately. But let's go here and we'll make this text level 2. Whoop. And with no return. And we'll come here and we'll make this text level 1. Okay. And then we'll add one more piece of text and we'll make that, let's pull it down so we can see it, text level 3. Now we'd like them all the same size, so let's, oh, and I hit return again. That made it small. So let's lock the size at, say, 150. Okay, and we come here and we lock the size at 150. And we come here. That has a new line too. Let's get rid of that. And lock the size at 150. There we go. So now they're all the same size and we can line them up like this. Now, this is the way that you would kind of do bullet points. Oh, I don't want to, oh, there we go. This is the way you do bullet points in InVideo. So let's line this up like right there. Now, the other thing for lining things up, this is kind of cool. Notice this grids. I turn on grids and it gives me lines that I can now line things up with so I can see how well things are lined up. This has got to come out just a tad. No, a tad. There we go. So things are pretty well lined up. Now what I do is I go, okay, we're looking at level 1, and it comes in at 5 seconds. Okay, that's fine. Now let's go to layers and pick level 2, and I want that to come in at 6 seconds. And then, oh, my playhead is finally showing things. It jumps to the other one. Ah, okay, it's finally showing it without anything. There we go. So I should be able to do that with the playhead. Now we did, number 2 is coming in at 5 seconds, and number 3 is coming in at 6 seconds. Okay, so we move that up to, whoa, we're right at the end. And let's drag this out. I want it to be longer than 7 seconds. Let's make this, actually I can make the whole slide be, let's make it 5 seconds. There we go. Now let's look at level 1 again. Level 1, which isn't there, is now coming in at 8. Okay, we want level 1 to come in at 5. Okay. and then level 2 to come in at 6, level 3 to come in at 7. There we go. And it looks like things are disappearing a little early. Okay, now what effects do we have for things coming in? Let's go to level 1 and go to edit. And we'll go to the animation. And it's got a fade in the whole thing. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's go to layers, level 2. And the animation for that is a fade in the whole thing. And then we go to layers, level 3, the last one, and we go edit. Animation is going to be a fade in. So these should fade in one at a time. Let's go ahead and do a preview. They faded in backwards. And then they blinked back and forth. So I somehow got that backwards. Let's go ahead and select layer 1. Okay, that's wrong. That's supposed to come on at 5. Okay, then we'll select layer 2. That comes on at 6, and layer 3 comes on at 7. There we go. Let's try playing that one more time. That should come on in order now. Level 1, level 2, level 3. And then we've got an out animation on this. So what we can do is, since everything is going out, let's say at 8, let's pick layer 1. Yeah, it's going out at 8. Let's give it an out animation of a fade out. So we come here to fade in place. Then we go to layers, and I want layer 2, and I want that at 8. So I pull this in. This is where it's going to disappear. So I want it to disappear at 8. So it'll have like 1 second of time when there isn't anything on the screen. And then I go here and I go edit. I go give me an animation. We've got the in of a fade, and we're going to give it an out of a fade in place. And then we'll go to layers, and we'll hit the third one, and we'll edit, and come down to animation, where we have a fade in, and we'll give it a fade out. There we go, in place. Now, we should see them appear one at a time, then disappear in a blank slide for about half a second. The last one faded out a little late. Okay, and I can see that when we're on it, it's at 9 seconds, so we want that to fade out at 8. I forgot to move the ending line. Let's try that one more time. And then they all fade out. And I could change that and make that a longer slide. That'll somewhat mess up my starts and stops and so on. I can use the playhead to see when things appear, so it's not here. Level 1 appears there. We don't have text 2 yet. There we go, and we got all 3. That was weird. So that's the way to use this timeline, is that I can control when things come in, when things go out. I can adjust the playhead to a certain degree to see what's going on. I can turn the grid on and off too, by the way. And I can sequence things. Now, one of the things you might want to do is, if you go from one slide to another and you're continuing, so let's go here and we'll say plus, give me a new slide. And I want this animation to continue on to the next slide. One of the things you'll want is no transition, right? I don't want a slide right to suddenly occur in the middle of my doing animations from one slide to the other. So this is the case where I would bring it up and I'd see slide right and hit the X. And then I'd get the slash through the box, which means no transition from one to the other. So if I play this now, I should see slide 2, I should see no There we go. That's exactly what I want. So that's how you do bullet points in InVideo. And it gives you a good practice at using the timeline. Pick when things start, when things end. Make sure you're picking the thing, by the way, and you're on the right thing. Otherwise, you're going to see different starts and ends. So I can control everything, when it enters, when it exits, and what effects it has on entering and exit for text. And for images, I can actually control what it does in place. So I can change the image too with the same timeline. And then the total timeline. Now, what are we at here on this one? Okay, so we made it up to 9. So remember we had 9 seconds here in the previous one. So it starts at 9. This text comes in half a second late. So you wait half a second and then you see the text. And that's it. No exit effect. And that's the way that you use the timeline to build detail screens. Now, in other options, options 1 and 2, where you provide a script or you pick a template, the timeline is all set up for you. It's defined. So you might want to modify it, but in Build Your Own, it's definitely up to you to define the timeline and when things happen. You don't have all of the help from the list or script to slides or the template based. So that's the timeline. And in the next lecture, we're going to look at all of the ways to insert text onto a slide. I'll see you there.